Hi, Laszlo.
Hi.
I will get straight into the questions with you. And of course, I want to start with the story of the fund because we have a really nice story from what I've read.
Well, so Interactive Venture Partners, I'm Laszlo.
We can also go back in the 60s.
The 60s, that's true. Well, let me weave back into that, but it's a great idea. So Interactive Venture Partners, we have the word interactive in our name because of the founder of Interactive Brokers, Mr. Tamas Peterfee. He's our sole limited partner. Actually, it's his family office. And he wants to support entrepreneurs in this region. So I've been running my own fund for 20 years with a woman named Christina. Anyway, we decided not to do another fund, and I had dinner with him, Mr. Peterfee, and he said, well, why don't you run a fund for me and help build the ecosystem in this part of the world, invest into CEE entrepreneurs. He's probably the most successful CEE entrepreneur ever.
Like the first one that got into the Silicon Valley and made out.
Well, actually, he didn't get into Silicon Valley. He was in Connecticut. So, but Interactive Brokers is a e-trading kind of electronic trading, very huge, global, and it's listed on the American Stock Exchange, worth about $100 billion, and he owns a lot of it. So.
People forget that it's actually like coming like from an immigrant in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, he left in the 1960s. He left with no money. He went to New York. This is all publicly available. I mean, I'm not authorized to speak about him, but this is what I know. He left, no money. He got a job. He started programming when really it didn't exist. And he built algorithms, and then eventually, if I remember correctly, he went to the American Stock Exchange, bought a seat, started trading, carrying a laptop computer as in a backpack, but it was in a front pack, so it was like here.
It was really big back in the day.
Yeah, and he went on the floor, and they got scared, and they kicked him out of the floor. And then because he was trading options before Black-Scholes option pricing model. Anyway, he's an amazing guy. He's really smart, amazing read of people and things and business, and it's a pleasure to work with him. So his family office is supporting us. We're investing into CE founders. We started about 2 years ago. We have 14 investments, including one in Romania, or one from Romania, I should say. And pre-seed to Series B. So our tickets are a couple 100,000 all the way up to near 10 million. And it's a great flexibility we have with one LP, basically, or family office as the LP. And it's also an evergreen fund, so we can go on and keep more capital coming if it makes sense. So, but I'm happy to talk more, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, so you're pretty particular because you have one sole LP, and you are actually maybe, can we call yourself like the venture vehicle of the family offices?
Yeah,
like,
for CE.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And he doesn't want to get involved in all the details, but he's met many of our founders.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and you know, we're actually just one other technicality. The capacity is based out of Budapest. I'm from New York, and my business partner, Mary Alcantara, she's also from the U.S., but from California. So, and she was helping a lot of go-to-market kind of situation startups for many years. And I've run funds before, so it's a great team. And again, it's a U.S. fund. But again, our capacity is in Budapest because this way we're closer to the fire. In other words, closer to CE, really part of CE being in Budapest. So we're here at the conference, which is a great conference, by the way. It's amazing, and you're doing a great job, and so is Bogdan and everybody else. It's a great place to network, to meet people, particularly entrepreneurs, but also co-investors. We really enjoy that. Angels, funds from the whole region and outside the region, you know, London, Berlin, etc. So it's a really useful conference. So my hat's off to you guys.
Thank you. Let's go back a bit, and also on a personal note, because you're like an US fund, used to live in US.
Yeah.
How do you live? How do you see things here? I'm talking about the startup ecosystem, and how is it like evolving over the past 2 years? Like,
Yeah.
how was it? Like, and please tell it like it is.
Yeah, no problem. I won't hold any punches back. I actually have a presentation I've made many times to universities and conferences about the difference between the US, Western European, and CEE ecosystems. And I start with a slide where there's a grown-up, there's kind of a young adult, and then there's kind of a, well, youngster. Yeah, I don't want to call them a baby anymore, but it depends on the country, but a youngster. So pre-teens, let's say. And that represents the ecosystem here. And the differences, I can get into the differences if you like. And in fact, I was just at this Endeavor thing this morning, this breakfast, and one of the panelists was saying that the U.S. is different, so the investors are different. The mindset of the investor is, I think, one of the fundamental differences. The ambition of the entrepreneur is another major difference. And let me just peel those away a little bit and get into it. So the investor, you know, the investor in the U.S., a fund will give you $10, $20 million to go and grow. Okay, it's not as crazy as it was years ago, but they are still willing to grow and not focus on profit. A typical family office, and I would say it's changing, but a typical investor out of Europe is interested in getting to break even. So it means the growth is going to be constrained. Okay, does every investment need to be a unicorn? No. And it's perfectly fine to get to whatever, and it depends on the market you're serving, the product, and everything else. But the point is the investor is braver in the U.S. And
so they are taking risks more,
yes.
And back here, we're like more adverse to risk.
Yeah,
is it like a summary?
Yeah, it's a good summary. It's like staged, you know, get to this point and then I'll give you more, you know, and it's this milestone.
Like unlocking levels.
Yes.
At a video game.
Exactly. And that's, it doesn't give the flexibility and the bravery to the entrepreneur that would support the ambition of the entrepreneur. See, this is also
How do we change that?
Yeah, so let's talk about the ambition. And the ambition side of an entrepreneur in Europe, particularly CEE, right? Everybody grew up here under communism, post-communism, and even before that, there was a bureaucracy of Habsburgs or whatever you want to call it, and other kind of bureaucracies. And those had a culture that if you were sticking out, if you're a blade of grass in a field that's too high, you get your head cut off. And also in the education side of children. I mean, my children were educated in Hungarian schools, frankly. And, okay, not universities, but anyway, we can get back to that. And they don't teach a student how to make a presentation. If you are a troublemaker in class, you're scolded. I've even seen, and this is crazy, where the child gives the wrong answer, and the child is scolded by the teacher in front of everybody for giving the wrong answer. That's not an encouraging way to stick out. Public speaking is not taught. So how are you going to market? Marketing and sales. How are you going to be a good salesperson if you can't stand out and express yourself?
Yeah, everybody's talking about the lack of sales skills for founders, but nobody is talking about like the cause of this, right?
It starts early. And also your parents, right? They grew up in this environment that, don't stand out because you get your head cut off. So what do you do? What do you do? The kids are not taught these skills.
But ambition-wise, aren't like good examples or like an inspiration for founders here? Like, can these good examples or like founders that made it make for like a more ambitious founders
Absolutely
coming?
It's
Isn't like an inspirational
Yes.
and aspirational thing? Like,
Yes.
can they bridge this just by seeing success stories more?
I think yes, and these good examples, these success stories, right? These ambitious people who made this success. Okay, they're also the failures, which you can learn from. But how do you get that word out? And when do you learn about this? I mean, my youngest son, I talk to him about venture capital all the time. Now he's involved in Student Venture Capital Association fund in where he's going. And he loves it, and he knows more than any of the people there about venture capital because we talk about it all the time. My two other sons are doing startups. I mean, when I grew up, and this is still the culture, I think, you got to go work in a company, a big company, you know? So the parents need to understand with these examples that you're talking about and citing that this is a good path. Because if you're successful in this part of the world, unfortunately, it means you stole money. And that's not right. You can be successful and rich and do it in a proper way, ethical way, with integrity. Just because you're successful doesn't mean you stole from somebody. I mean, this is the attitude that is frustrating me.
But this can also be like the secret sauce at Interactive Partners, right?
This can be a what, sorry?
A secret sauce,
Yes.
because you know this, and you have maybe a little bit like other mentality than the others here. So is this your secret sauce, the fact that you are coming into investment meetings with this US mentality?
We have a different perspective for sure. I mean, we've had founders who say, I want to move to the US. Okay, well, go for a test tour for 2-3 months, see what it's like. And then they want to hire a salesperson in the US, and the salesperson is amazing, right? And then I meet them. Well, okay, it's expensive, but, and this is the risk, right, is I mean, I have a rule, usually 1 out of 3 hires work, right? But when a local founder who has very, let's say, not the best at sales and marketing, meets someone who is very bubbly, but it's all bullshit, right? Excuse my French.
Because here in Europe, we also think about the US founders that are like more bullshit, or like they are doing more sales than technology. So maybe we can also get into that one.
Yeah, well, that's another big difference. In fact, in the panel this morning at the Endeavor thing, I can't remember who said it, but I think it was Sylvia. Yeah, he said, in Germany, you have to be prepared with data. Connections or networking doesn't mean, you can't go a story so much. I mean, one of our portfolio companies, they're deciding to focus on the U.S. because the bureaucracy of getting a German OEM or a big manufacturer on board is just a very long process. It's really long. In the US, you can go sell a story. I mean, Microsoft, right? Bill Gates, he sold Windows before it existed. So you can't do that in Germany. You can't sell with a story in Germany or Switzerland. It's a different mentality, a different culture. I'm not saying one is right or wrong. It's just different. And you need to understand, right? If you meet some bubbly salesperson, it doesn't mean that person is great. You have to kind of dig in. And we bring that perspective, and Mary Alcantara, who's my business partner at Interactive Venture Partners, again, we've both done a lot of go-to-market stuff. How do you do that? What's the right way?
Can you maybe also give out a piece of advice to founders, maybe that are technical, to spot the bullshit in the...
Check references. Don't ever rely on what the person says. I mean, I've had numerous situations where they've said, I've done this, and then I call.
So this is for hiring in the US?
Yeah,
okay.
hiring. But for technical founders, try to bring in, as a late founder, some commercially oriented late founder. And even when you're forming the company, don't get another founder exactly the same, with the same strengths and weaknesses that you have. Complement it, be complementary. Don't have too many founders either. I mean, you know, more than 4, even 4 is, but it's okay. But don't get, a sole founder is not great, but it works. But it's even better when there's 2. It's a lonely place, as we all know, to be a founder. So if you can have a commercial sense and a technical sense, it's a good combination. And this part of the world is great on the technical part, but not very good on sales and marketing. So
this answer got me a bit curious about advising advisors at a startup and their role, and how do you see this coming out of the US and also here in the CEE? There are investors that advise startup founders to, of course, not give out percentage to advisors like 0.15 or something like that. Okay, that well known. But I think that here in this part of Europe, founders are a bit adverse to getting on advisors, or they are either adverse to this one or getting too many advisors that after 6 months are leaving, and they changed everything, and the technical founder needs to start all over, and yeah.
Well, I'm cautious of advisors. Let's start there.
Thank you.
Especially that want a lot of equity, and you know, an advisor.
What should be the max percentage? Like, if we want to talk like SOP.
Well, if you're gonna, there's some great benchmarks out there, and
of course, like Sequoia, Creandum, like there are Carta, of course.
Yeah.
But it's a bit different though, with those benchmarks, because they are mainly for the US and with the CE.
Well, if it's a go-to-market advisor, I would pay some retainer and some success-based stuff, kind of thing, rather than equity, frankly. If you're going to be an advisor, like a real technical strategic advisor, then I would start giving equity. If you want a board member, as an independent board member, that's also an equity kind of thing, you know, like a 5th board member, right? 2 founders, 2 investors, maybe an angel investor and a VC investor or whatever, and then a 5th, an independent. That's another thing here.
Being independent.
Being independent, yeah.
It's a bit tricky.
Yeah, what's independence? It means you're not an investor. We encourage our startups to get an independent board member. It's hard. It's not easy to find, and especially early stage, it's not very practical. So you live without that. But as you get to Series A, Series B for sure, you get independent these board members. we can talk about the role of the board and what's a good board and a bad board, and also that's another difference between U.S. and Europe.
Please get into this one because I did not get to any of my interviews on this.
Okay, so what's a board of directors? Let's define this.
Like we can know, like we know the definition also back here, but like maybe the differences.
The difference, but I need to define it. You see, because Anglo-Saxon, in other words, U.S. and U.K. board of directors includes executives and non-executives. In other words, investors, independents, and management. Usually founders, but always the CEO. Depends on the stage, because sometimes founders, Series D, E, you don't always stick around on the board. But anyway, in Europe, continental Europe, especially CEE, which is German law-based usually, you have the management board, and then you have the supervisory board concept. The supervisory board's role is to supervise the management board. It's not to have strategic discussions. I've sat on German boards, okay, but they're not a management board and they're not a supervisory board. There's this creation in Germany of an advisory board where the management board has to go to the advisory board for permission to do certain things like it would be an Anglo-Saxon board. It's a different way of thinking is the point. And in CEE, it's very German-based, traditional German. In fact, this goes to the ambition. If you were, it used to be, if you were on the board, management board, supervisory board, or whatever, an executive of a company that went bankrupt, you could not sit on the board of a company as a manager or whatever for 3 years. You got a black dot. You were punished for failing. So if you have a startup in Silicon Valley and fail, you gain experience. In Europe, even
Here
though
you gain a reputation for other investors to not invest in your next endeavor.
Exactly. You get a black dot over your head, bad boy. And in the US, you gain experience, right? I mean, my son, he loves, one of my sons, he goes, I just ran this race. I won experience. Sometimes he wins races, but anyway. So this mentality is also different on how a board should be run and what's the role of a board. The role of a board, in my view, is to help the entrepreneur, the CEO, entrepreneur, founders, with their loneliness. In other words, it's a lonely place to be an entrepreneur. You really are all alone, struggling with challenges. And the board in the US concept is a place where you can have a dialogue with people, share things honestly, debate things strategically. It's not a management board versus an advisory board. You're all part of the same thing, and you all want the company to succeed. And here it's two separate frames of mind, and that's not healthy. And that's a major difference between US and Europe, continental Europe. And that is evolving. But the traditional, notary and legal frameworks are one of the issues in my mind. The other issue is, again, education of youngsters to be able to public speak, marketing, sales, etc.
And on this note, not so optimistic, we're gonna wrap this up.
Sure.
Thank you, Laszlo.
Thank you.
And see you around. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.